Hi everyone, I am Maya and welcome to my channel. If you know me from TikTok, you already know that I love everything books. I love buying books, I love reading books, I love looking at books, I love listening to books, and I really love fantasy and romance and dark romance, and I love making reaction videos. And today I'm bringing that same energy here on YouTube with my top 10 reads of 2024. Because what better way to get to know each other better than for me to talk about the books that I loved. So last year I read 120 books, and for me that is insane. I set myself a goal for 50 books because I didn't want to pressure myself, but I secretly hoped that I would read at least 80 books because in 2023 I read 75 books. But I feel like I just want to read for the fun of it and don't set like a goal to reach. That is not good for my mental health. So I set 50 books and I almost tripled that. So that's insane. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've actually listened to 6 out of 10 books as an audiobook, but I've also read the physical copy. And I'm so excited to share my top 10 reads of 2024 with you today. Whether you're into swoon-worthy romances, epic fantasies, or thrilling dark romances, there's something here for everyone. And these will be in no specific order. I cannot choose between these books at all. And of course, these are all 5-star reads for me. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more bookish content because I will be posting more here. So let's jump right into it. First up, we have Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This is literally 2024's fantasy top read. If you don't know this book, you have been living under a rock because this has been everywhere. Everywhere. I read this in August, I think, and I was hooked from the start. And I was so utterly ruined when I discovered that book 2 wasn't gonna be published until November this year, like 2025, because I went in thinking that book 2 would be published in October 2024 and I didn't have to wait. Dang it, when I found out that the next book was gonna be published a year later, because oh my god, I devoured this book. So if you have been thinking about reading Quicksilver, you definitely should. I have no clue how you say her name, so I actually have to listen to the audiobook for 2 damn minutes.
The age I'd given him was real, as was my pathetic romantic status, but the name I provided wasn't. This bastard would shit himself if he realized he had the Saris Fane in his grasp.
Saris Fane. So I will not tell you a lot about this book because I think it's best to go in almost completely blind, but I can tell you that we follow Saris Fane, a 24-year-old thief. She is really resourceful and she is stealing because that's the only way to like survive. She has no family left except her little brother, and he is depending on her to get water rations because they live in a brutal desert where water is really hard to come by. So she steals to get like water rations and money to be able to, well, survive. But Saris has some mysterious powers that accidentally opens a gateway to another realm. And when secrets are about to unravel, she meets a brooding warrior named Kingfisher, and that's all I will say about this story. This is the only thing I read about the book before I started it, and it's on the back of the book, and it's do not touch the sword, do not turn the key, do not open the gate. That was all I knew. So go into this blindly if you can. There is spice, there is romance, and there is a lot of action and thrilling aspects. And I will say that this gave me a dark romance but make it fantasy vibe. And I love that. I finished this book in a week while working full time and also reading another book at the same time. And I'm also a slow reader and this book is thick. So for me that is really quick. The thing I loved most about this book is that there was no part of this book where I felt it was dragging. I was seriously so engaged with all of the characters and the entire world, and I am so excited for what will happen in book 2, which will be out I think in November 2025. So if you like fast-paced thrilling fantasies and a morally grey MMC, this book is definitely for you. So if you haven't already read this, you should definitely read it in 2025. Next up, we have another fantasy. This is A Light in the Flame by Jennifer Elle Armentrout. And this is the second book in the Flesh and Fire series, which is a spin-off from the From Blood and Ash series. Oh my god, when I read this book, I could not put it down. I was seriously reading for 8 hours in one sitting. This one I actually had an immersive reading experience, so I listened to the audiobook as well as I read the book physically. And if you haven't tried that before, you should definitely try it. I really think the narrator in the From Blood and Ash and the Flesh and Fire series is doing an amazing job. It's the same one that does both. So to tell you a little bit about this book, we follow Serafina, or Sarah, our FMC, and our MMC Nyctus, who is the Primal of Death. Sarah is the chosen one to uphold a deal her ancestor made. She must leave her life behind to become the consort of the Primal of Death, Nyctos, because her land is dying of a mysterious rot. And the only way to fix this is by killing the Primal of Death, or so she thinks. I finished this book in 2 days, and for the best experience with this series, you will have to read the From Blood and Ash series as well. If you want me to do a video on like the reading order of this series, I will definitely do that, either here or on TikTok. That's up to you. But there is like a specific reading order you should read them in to get the full experience. Today I have currently only the last book in this series left, and also the last published book. There will be at least one more From Blood and Ash book, which I am desperately waiting for. It comes out this year in June, I think, and I am trying to prolong this series because I have only one book left and I seriously don't want it to end. This takes place before the From Blood and Ash series. That's important to know, but you shouldn't read the entire series before, because you will kind of spoil yourself the storyline in From Blood and Ash by reading these in not the correct order, if that makes sense. This series is perfect for you that like a good romantasy with a lot of spice, a lot of banter, a lot of like enemies to lovers kind of vibe. And also if you're just looking for a long series to dive into. I will say that I think she could have written all of her books shorter, and that's actually why I also like to listen to the audiobook while I'm reading, because if there are some parts that I find more boring, then it's great to have the audiobook to like pull you through that phase of the book. So yeah, A Light in the Flame by Jennifer Elle Armentrout. Next up we have one of my favorite books, and it's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I read this in Norwegian. If you can see my annotations in this book, there's a lot. And I have annotated the whole thing, like you can see here. When I tell you that this book still sits with me, I am not kidding. This is a dark academia masterpiece. If I want a dark academia book, I will want something like this. This book takes you into the twisted world of an elite group who studies Greek at a college in Vermont. We follow Richard Papin once he gets invited to this hand-picked group of students that study Greek. He is a newcomer, and this study group has almost no contact with the other students at the college. They have the same teacher who teaches them Greek, and they have this teacher in all their courses. So they get really excluded from the society around them. And when this group and Richard Papin turns down a really morally gray road, they realize that their lives might be changed forever. It's really cool to see how the lines between morality and obsession starts to really get blurry. The hardest thing about this book is that it's 600 pages divided by 8 chapters. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The chapters are divided into like smaller parts and sections, so you kind of have chapters inside the chapters, if that made sense. And I think this might be a book I will reread sometime in the future, but I think I will have to get a new copy because I want to annotate different things when I read it the second time. Broken Bonds by Bree is the first book in the Bonds That Tie series. This series is literally so captivating. I could not put it down. I did not sleep until I finished this series. Like, when I tell you I was obsessed, I mean it in the strongest way possible. I am actually rereading this entire series as we speak, and I am currently in book 3, and I started book 1 yesterday. So I am devouring it again because I haven't finished the last book in the series because I just fell completely out of it, and then I didn't remember anything that happened once I picked it up again. So I was just like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna reread it, and I am having a freaking amazing time again. So this story follows Oleander, or Ollie. Oleander has been on the run for 5 years from her bonded, which is the 5 guys that she is a central bond to. After 5 years, she gets captured and dragged back to face the guys she ran away from. And Oleander is determined that she holds the fate of her people in her hands and is best off alone. But once she starts to get to know her bonded, she slowly realizes that she might have been wrong. But once the so-called resistance starts to get closer to Oleander, she starts to really freak the hell out, because if there's one thing that cannot happen is that Oleander gets captured again by the resistance, because her power might be the end of everything. The term bond signifies a profound destined connection between special individuals forming a so-called group called bonded mates. So this is like a fated mate, paranormal, low fantasy where we're set in a society that has powers. We have shifters, we have mind controlling, we have human bombs, we have a lot of powers. So if you can think about a power, you most likely have it in this book. I also did an immersive reading while I was reading the series, both the first time and the second time now I'm rereading it, and the narrator, you can actually distinguish which character she is narrating only by listening to her voice. And oh, it's a 6-book series and it's completed. So Broken Bonds by Bree is a must read if you want like a fast-paced, action-packed, thrilling, white shoes romantasy with dark romance tendencies. I will definitely say that this has dark romance tendencies. This series is most likely for you. Redeemed by Lauren Asher is the last and final book in her Dirty Air series, which is a Formula 1 sports romance. This is most definitely the most heartbreaking story of them all, because it centers around inner struggles and life not working out the way you wanted it to. I cried so many times during this book, but at the same time it was really freaking cute and sweet and wholesome, and I love the characters for each other. Like, they just overshadow the entirety of the rest of the series. Like, I love Noah from the first book, I do, but Santi just stole my heart. This last book follows Santi. Santi is the Formula 1 driver and also the brother of the FMC in the first book in this series. And when one mistake destroys Santi's career, everything in his life changes for the worse. That is up until Chloe, our FMC, breaks into his house. Santi is desperate to show his sister that he is okay and everything is fine, and Chloe might be the perfect person Santi needs to fix this problem. Santi is such an unexpected character. Like, when I read about him in the first book, I was like, okay, hi, hello. I didn't care for him, but once I got to this book and I started reading this book, my heart bleeds for Santi. And I did listen to the audiobook instead of reading the physical copy of this book, and the narrators in the entire series does an amazing job. So if you want a new audiobook series you can listen to, the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher is definitely a good place to start. I completed the Sarah J. Maas universe in 2024, and House of Earth and Blood is most definitely the best book in the entire Crescent City series. And once you get past those first 150-200 pages of insane world building, oh my god, it's so freaking worth it. You can also see I have tabbed this book a lot, and there's so much about this book that I was just loving. This story follows Bryce Quinlan. She is a party girl through and through, but when something really tragic happens, her whole life comes crashing down. This story takes place 2 years after this tragic event. Bryce does everything she can to forget what happened 2 years ago, but once it seems like history is about to repeat itself, Bryce knows she can no longer forget. And Hunt Atlar, a fallen angel, gets assigned to watch Bryce's every move. Together they navigate this urban fantasy world filled with danger and secrets and plenty of Sarah J. Maas's signature romance aspects and plot. Once I heard this was an urban fantasy setting, I was so unsure about what I felt about that, but once you get into the book, I think it's actually a really cool aspect of the series, because you have phones, you have Wi-Fi, and you have like this modern setting done really well in a fantasy world. I will say that I was struggling with the first pages, but somewhere in those 150 to 200 pages, something just clicked and everything was just easy to understand. And I don't know what happened, but once I got over those first pages, oh my god, the story is like a crime solving book. I feel like we walk around in the city following Bryce and Hunt on their like quest to solving a mystery. So I felt like I was watching a true crime show, but I was reading a fantasy book. But there is an audiobook out there, so if you are struggling with the world building, I would recommend that you might do a immersive reading session with this book, so that makes it easier to pull through those initial first pages. I do recommend that you've read both ACOTAR and Throne of Glass before you start this series, however, because then you know Sarah's writing style and you know you have a good story in wait. But now, once I finish this series, I am desperately just waiting for the next book in the ACOTAR series, like probably all of us are. And to know that we probably won't get it this year is really breaking my heart, because I was expecting it to come out this quarter of the year, and apparently it won't. Which makes me sad. Really, really freaking sad. I think the next book might be one of my favorite books of the year. It's Lights Out by Navessa Allen. If there's one book you should listen to as an audiobook, it's definitely Lights Out by Navessa Allen, because Jacob Morgan, the narrator for the MMC Josh, oh wow, he does an amazing job. I was sick while I was listening to it, so I was just laying in my bed, because I listen to audiobooks when I want to sleep, because then my mind like shuts up. But I could not fall asleep while listening to this book. So I think I listened to the entirety of the book in one day. This book got me through the worst day while I was sick. I think that's why I love it so much. This book had me laughing, it had me giggling, and I will just die on this hill that this is the best dark romance I've read. So we follow Elle, a trauma nurse who is obsessed with masked men online, and she never thought a text to her previous hookup would make her wildest fantasies come true. When Allie's previous hookup shows the text message to his roommate Josh, he owns the freaking account. He will stop at nothing to get Allie's attention. So Josh does the only thing he can think of, and he breaks into her house to film a thirst trap for his channel, so she will see that he is in her house. I'll just leave it at that, because everything that happens after that point is just fantastic. But I will say that there's a whole page of trigger warnings in this book, so please check them. This next book I actually read twice last year, because the only thing I wanted to do once I finished it was reread it. And I managed to go 2 months before I reread it. And it's The Score by Elle Kennedy. This is the third book in the Off-Campus series. And we follow Dean and Allie. If you haven't read the Off-Campus series, I strongly recommend reading the entirety of the series. This is probably the best hockey romance story I have ever read, and The Score is most definitely one of my favorite books of all time. I don't know what it is about this story, but I feel like the characters are so perfect for each other, and the balance between them throughout this book just makes it so good, and the tension and the banter and everything is just perfect. As I said, we follow Dean and Allie. Allie has recently broken up with her boyfriend, and Allie is worried that her ex-boyfriend will show up the evening she is alone in her dorm room. So her roommate Hannah's boyfriend Garrett offers to let her stay at his house off campus while she is alone, thinking that no one is home. But Dean De Laurentiis is home. Dean, the gentleman he is, offers to be her rebound, which Allie just laughs about. But Dean, used to always getting what he wants, might just be too hard to resist. And as I said, I read this book twice last year, and I still want to reread it like now, because that's how good I think the book is. The last book is a reread. I first read this book in 2023 and I was hooked from the beginning. Then I listened to the audiobook this year because I just wanted something comforting and something funny and something wholeheartedly good, and it's Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in her Chestnut Spring series. I have not finished that series yet because I am trying to prolong it, but this is by far my favorite out of the 3 I have read up until now. Willa and Cade's story is so sweet. It's to die for. I think this might be my favorite romance book. That is a big thing to say, but I think it might be. I literally love this book with all of my heart. If there's one book I will take with me on a stranded island, this would be it. As I said, we follow Cade and Willa. Cade is this grumpy single dad, and Willa is this bubbly, carefree, 13 years younger girl that he hires as his son's nanny for the summer. Cade barely looks Willa's way, and Willa is determined to make him smile and laugh. I don't know what to say about this book. I can say that I like it, but I don't know how to explain it. It's a grumpy single dad nanny romance. That's what it is. And what is better than that? Because if I can have Cade, I will. Oh my god, they don't come like this. Elsie Silver writes men for women, and I love it. I love it so freaking much. I will probably reread this book in 2025 as well. My goal for this year is also to finish the last 2 books in the Chestnut Spring series, and then I will just devour all of her other books. This is a standalone, but it's an interconnected one, so I do recommend that you start with the first book, Flawless, if you haven't read that one yet. That was my top 10 books of 2024. I am so happy with the reading year I had last year, and to be able to pick 10 books out of 120 was not an easy choice. And I have only been reading for 2 years, so I feel like I'm doing this catch up with everything that's on Book Talk and BookTube and everything. So I feel like I'm constantly reading good books because I'm reading books people have recommended for years already. I hope 2025 turns out as good as 2024 did. I will be making a 2025 hopefuls video because I have so many books this year I really want to read. And as I said, I feel like I'm doing catch up. So if you are like me and you've recently started reading, follow me on this journey because I guarantee you there will be a lot of good books coming this year. Thank you for watching. I hope you will follow me for more bookish content in 2025. If you like this video, remember to like it and comment down below your favorite book of 2024. And if you read any of these books, I would love to discuss them with you in the comments down below. So see you next time. Bye!